Welcome back to Hitting the High Notes. This is part 3, entitled Marriage. Now we've gone through the part 1, which is developing the head voice, and then part 2 was transition, where we developed the transition and made a nice smooth transition between our head voice and our chest voice. This is entitled Marriage, and this is where we're going to take the head register down. We've already gone that down, but now we're going to start using that as the vehicle to bring the chest register up. And we're going to take the head register, the chest register, we're going to put them together, one voice, marriage. Now there was a question I asked a long time ago, because actually what does end up happening on your high notes is that the chest register is actually involved singing the high notes. And I remember asking an instructor I had a long time ago, well, aren't you still risking damaging your vocal cords by singing those high notes? And he gave me this analogy. So which would you rather do? Or rather, which would be more difficult? To pull a wagon with 300 pounds of dirt in it up a hill, or harness a well-trained pony to that wagon, and you simply walk beside the pony with your hand on the bridle and guide the pony up the hill. You're still going up there, you're still going up to those high notes, but you're not actually carrying the load. And the idea is that the chest register will be up there providing guidance and providing tone quality, but the actual weight of the note is going to be carried by the head register. Interesting thing as a side benefit is, by the fact that we've brought the head register all the way down, that is actually going to give you a lot more dynamic control on your low notes, because instead of having to, when you soften your low notes and going breathy, where you lose your breath support and possibly end up pitchy, you're simply holding this beautiful tension between the head register and the chest register, and so when you need to soften it, the head register actually takes over down there on the low range, and so you can maintain your breath support and, as such, maintain your control. So in starting to put the two tones together, we're going to do the same exercise we did before. We're going to drop it a little bit. We're going to go down, start at the E above middle C, slide down, and then slide back up to the dominant, or the fifth, and we're going to try to land somewhere in between. Because the fact of the matter is, if we had a smooth transition between the head voice and the chest voice without a break, at some point in there, both registers were actually functioning together. So now what we're going to do is we are going to isolate that and actually land somewhere at the point where both of them are actually producing the note together. This is the hardest thing we've done so far. As I said, we're going to start on E, slide down the octave, and go up to the fifth, which is B. Now here's what's going to be hard. We're going to go up a half step each time until we're back up to the B, and the fifth is going to be F sharp. That means we are going to develop the ability to hold a sustained blended note on every single half step in the break region. And this is good. Don't be afraid to let this take a long time to develop. It's going to be the hardest thing we're going to be doing. Once we get past this one, the rest of it's going to be easy. So let's go ahead and start with it. Half step. And that literally was it. If you were able to do that, you've done the hardest part. Now still, we want to go down. work it down to, as we said, within one note of your bottom note. Now the thing is that was the hardest part right there, because your voice is screaming to say, I've got to jump into either the head voice or the chest voice, and by the time you can successfully hold it and blend it and hold it on the blended tone, you've really done the hardest part. Everything after that is purely academic. We're just simply building on that. Now what you're actually hearing me do is something that took about 2.5 years worth of training to develop. That's the bad news. The good news is that there was improvement almost immediately. It's much like and if I can use as an example, how to bench press 300 pounds. It's very simple. You take a 45-pound Olympic bar, set it on the bench rack, you put 255 pounds on the bar, evenly distributed, then you lay down on the bench, you grasp the bar, lift it off the racks, lower it down to your chest, and push up, and you've done it. Very simple. The problem with that, at least in my case, is my muscles are simply not developed to be able to lift anywhere near that kind of weight, and I don't know if I even have the genetic disposition to actually be able to do that. And that's kind of the same thing with the singing. There's no magic bullet, no magic formula, no special secret way to be able to sing. Singing is very basic, it's very simple. But the vocal mechanism is all controlled by muscles, and they all have to be developed in order for you to be able to do this. Particularly at the beginning, if you haven't been singing like this, they're not used to doing this. So what I'm saying to you is take the time. It's like somebody who wanted to eventually max out on a 300-pound bench press. You're going to have to start out at a weight you can actually lift and gradually build up your muscles and even work on your technique, but it's going to take you some time. So don't be afraid for this to take time. But the thing is, if you try to push yourself too hard, it's just going to cause problems, and you'll actually end up being counterproductive, and you'll end up hurting yourself, and then nothing will get accomplished. Now we're going to do another variation of this. This is going to be a little tricky. Again, don't try this until you've done the first one, because quite frankly, if you can't do the first one, the second one's going to be impossible. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start in a head note, slide down into a chest note, slide back up to a blended fifth, and then we're going to slide all the way back up to the top note, but we're going to try to not go quite back into a full head note. We're going to try to keep a little bit of the chest note in there. So we're going to do it like this. Here's how it goes. And that's probably about as high as I'm going to be able to go with it. Another exercise to do, and this one I actually am a little hesitant to even suggest you do it unless you have a vocal coach who's working with you, because it's really easy to push yourself a little too hard. But start at the lower range, but basically you take a note like the B below middle C, you start in a head note and you just gradually build it into a chest note and then fade it back. You can do this exercise, just gradually work your way up. If one gives you a hard time, go back down to the very bottom. So this is basically it. Basically at this point here, you have pretty much developed an entire marriage between the two registers. They're working together. you've got basically two horses pulling the same cart now, except that they're two horses that are good at totally different things. So when you're down in the low chest range, your chest range is carrying the weight of it, and your head voice is down there, actually providing a little bit of tone quality and a little bit of balance. But then it gets to the other end of the extreme, and your head voice now is carrying the weight, and the chest register is up there just simply providing tone quality and guidance, and it's not putting a strain on it. And it actually, by this point here, you would probably have increased your range quite a bit. I'm going to do one more thing at the risk of showing off. I'm going to do something just as a demonstration at the very, very end. I don't suggest you try this on your own.